In your opinion, what is the importance of representation as well as mentorship in our community?
Right. What I saw was professionals, right? Professionals who cared about us, right? They cared about us. They talked to us. I mean, they were there to mentor us, to sit down and talk about, get down the nitty gritty. And they were real with us. They didn't try to act like they were highfalutin because they had college degrees and master's degrees and all like that. They were like down to earth, and they were concerned with our success in our future. And they instilled that in me in terms of that, in terms of caring about other people.
Yeah, you know, it's something else you mentioned, though. You said that when you went in, you didn't have, you started from the very bottom and worked your way up. So you kind of like paid your dues and proved yourself. You didn't feel as though anything was, that you deserved anything. You started from the very bottom. You were willing to do that.
Right.
So you didn't feel kind of entitled, like, you know, not that everyone's entitled, but, you know, dealing in our communities these days, a lot of these young folks are entitled, or they feel entitled. But you said that you swallowed your pride and said, look, I'll go get you coffee. But that's how you got your foot in the door.
Yeah, and you say I didn't feel entitled, but I felt empowered. Because, like, especially under J. Morris Anderson, because he expected you to do things that you would like say, you want me to do that? You have to call an executive, the head of Nabisco for advertising. And you're calling that person, and I'm 17 years old. I never did this before. Go ahead. He would push you in the water, and you better sink or swim. But he would train you. And then we would learn that everybody put their pants on one leg at a time, right? And that you can do it. And you know what? And then what I found, and what I teach nowadays is practice. Practice brings competence. Competence brings confidence. And then when you have confidence and you practicing, you become really good. That's when that magnificence starts coming out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you also mentioned, you know, the service. And it's interesting in doing these talks and meeting different people, how a lot of people who are in leadership roles spend time in the military. I think that's interesting. That's like it's very colonial leadership.
I was blessed. Now I didn't really think about it, but my father was in the military. My brother was in the Coast Guard and later in the Army. I was in the Navy. My father was in the Army, right? So I had that kind of surrounded. Nobody was really in the Navy. I mean, the Coast Guard is not the Navy. You know, that's between us and the Coast Guard, right? The
Yeah.
Navy. But but being that experience right there taught me leadership, because you're given responsibilities. You're able to measure, and man, some of that stuff I've taken, I use it now, because you're measured with competencies. At E1, you do certain things. At E2, at E3, and as you move up, your competencies in terms of your leadership skills expands and grows. So you see yourself growing, and you get additional responsibility. So that was a good part of that. The other part was good was all the exposure. Man,
Yeah.
Let me tell you something too. Tell you something real special. And I will say this. I believe I mentioned this in the book, but people from Philadelphia, not because I'm from Philadelphia, all like that, I got to, place my heart for them, but all the people in Philadelphia that I've seen outside of Philadelphia, all leaders. Everybody was following us, right? Mm-hmm. Wherever we go. I mean, even to the point where I was in the Navy, and we would go to places like Saint Raphael, France, right? We never been to Marseille, France. We'd go there and never been there before. And then because of my upbringing, I would go there. We arrive at the Fleet Landing, go into town, meet people, have a great time, meet all kind of people. I didn't have that, I didn't have the fear of people, but I had the street sense to always be safe.
Yeah.
So I could operate, I could sense, is this danger, right? Or is this person a good person, whatever. And that's 17-year-old, 18-year-old street sense.
Yeah.
In terms of that. So I did learn that, and I was able to practice that. I mean, Spain, France, Italy, everywhere I went.
But, you also mentioned something earlier, that how your perspective changed once you started to travel. And I always find that interesting, too, when you talk to certain people and you talk about where they're at now versus where they come from, right. And how when you broaden your horizon, that can have an effect on you. So, for instance, I'm from Germantown, and I literally know brothers who went to Germantown High School. They went to Roosevelt. They date a girl from Germantown. They do their shopping at Germantown or Shell. They never left the neighborhood, let alone the city. They haven't left. They haven't left that one section. And you can see the difference in their perspective versus someone who's gotten out and specifically traveled outside the country.
We call them hood rats. And that's not really negative, because believe me, let me say that. Let me qualify that, because I love community residents, the people that don't leave that neighborhood, because one of the problems that we have in our communities is that once we start adding value to ourselves, we start getting education, we get a good job, what's the first thing we do? We leave the neighborhood.
Try to leave, absolutely.
Leave the hood. So now we have more value, and we take our value to another community and add value to that community, taking the value from our community. Yep. I think what happened if all the college graduates that came out of North Philly returned to North Philly.